My daughter laughed at my habits, and her kids started copying them. It caused tension, arguments, and hurt feelings in the family. Through patience and standing firm, the situation finally resolved, and everyone learned the importance of respect and understanding. I still remember the exact moment everything changed. I never thought a simple family dinner could turn into a full-blown war. But it did, and it all started because my daughter laughed at my habits. Not just laughed, mocked me openly. And the worst part? Her kids, my sweet grandchildren, started copying her. I felt like I had lost them before I even realized it. I'm a 62-year-old retired school teacher. I've always been a creature of habit. Same morning coffee, same favorite chair, even the way I fold my socks. It sounds silly, but these little things made me feel safe, grounded. My daughter, Claire, has always been independent, opinionated, and, frankly, a bit mean when she's in a teasing mood. She's 35, married, with 2 kids, ages 7 and 9. I've loved them like my own, but lately, it feels like I'm losing them to her influence. The first incident was innocent enough. I was sipping my tea at the breakfast table, arranging my toast just right. Claire smirked and said, "Mom, you're ridiculous. Who cares about toast symmetry?" I laughed it off, but she didn't stop there. She started pointing out every little quirk. How I tap my spoon 3 times before stirring, how I always say bless you twice after a sneeze, even the way I keep my knitting needles in perfect order. Her laughter wasn't harmless. It stung. And the next thing I knew, my grandchildren were mimicking her. One morning, I pour my cereal, and little Emily giggled, "Grandma, why do you have to make everything so perfect?" Then Max, with his hands on his hips, added, "Yeah, Grandma, it's weird." I couldn't believe it. My own children were laughing at me. My heart sank. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself, they're kids, they don't mean anything by it. But it kept happening. At family dinners, at holidays, even when I tried to teach them small lessons or stories, Claire would whisper jokes to them, and they'd snicker behind my back. It wasn't just teasing. It was like she was undermining me at every turn. I tried talking to her once. "Claire, I don't like it when you make fun of me in front of the kids," I said gently. She shrugged and laughed. "Oh, come on, Mom. It's just harmless fun. They're learning how to joke." But I could see the mischief in her eyes, and I knew it wasn't harmless. Then came the final straw. It was my birthday. I had invited just a small group, Claire, her husband, and the kids. I baked my favorite chocolate cake, arranged the table carefully, and even wore my special sweater. As soon as we sat down, Claire pointed at my knitting needles and whispered, "Look at Grandma's crazy sticks." Her kids burst out laughing. Max started mimicking how I hold my knitting. Emily repeated everything Claire said. I froze. I felt humiliated. Right there in my own home, my family was laughing at me like I was some kind of circus act. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to cry, scream, anything. Instead, I quietly excused myself from the table, holding back tears, and went to my room. I sat there, staring at my knitting, feeling powerless. How had it come to this? How could my own daughter treat me like this? And worse, why were my grandchildren learning this behavior from her? That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them disrespect me. Not my daughter, not her children. But I didn't know how to fight back without causing a full family meltdown. I had to be smart. I had to make them understand that mocking someone you love is never harmless. And that's when I started planning. The next morning, I woke up feeling a mixture of anger and determination. I had replayed the birthday scene in my mind over and over, trying to figure out the best way to handle Claire and her kids. I knew confrontation was inevitable, but I also knew I couldn't just explode at them. I had to think strategically. I started with small changes. I stopped volunteering for family dinners. I stopped asking Claire to help with my garden, which had been our little weekend tradition. I kept my distance and I watched them closely. And what I saw hurt even more. The kids had started openly mocking me at home too. Emily would hum while I knitted, exaggerating my movements. Max would announce, "Grandma's crazy sticks time," and laugh as he swung his imaginary knitting needles in the air. It was relentless. And Claire? She smiled proudly, like she was teaching a lesson. One afternoon, I decided to record a video on my phone. Not to post online, but just for myself. I wanted to capture the patterns, the behavior, so I could later show them what had been happening. I didn't want anyone to deny it. In the video, Emily repeated every sarcastic comment Claire had made about me. Max acted out my funny little habits. Even Claire appeared in the background, laughing and pointing. Watching it back made my stomach churn. I couldn't believe this was happening in my own family. By this time, my frustration had turned into a quiet, simmering fury. I knew I had to set boundaries, but how? I wasn't a confrontational person, but something inside me refused to let them walk all over me. So, I started making subtle changes in the way I interacted. I stopped answering Claire's calls right away. I stopped baking for them. I avoided situations where I would be in the direct line of ridicule. One evening, Claire came over with the kids, expecting me to greet them warmly. I didn't. I stayed in my armchair, pretending to read a book. Emily ran to me, arms wide, expecting a hug. I hesitated. "Hi, sweetie," I said cautiously, giving a small nod. Max whispered something to Claire, and I could see her smirk. I knew she thought she had me cornered. Then it happened. Emily, frustrated that I wasn't reacting the way she wanted, blurted out, "Grandma, why are you always so weird?" Her voice cracked, but there was a sharpness in her tone. My heart broke, but something clicked inside me. I couldn't let this slide anymore. I put the book down, looked them both in the eyes, and spoke firmly. "Emily, Max, being different isn't weird, and it's never okay to make fun of someone you love." Claire froze. I had never spoken to her like that. She opened her mouth, probably to argue, but I raised a hand. "No, Claire, this isn't about jokes. This is about respect. And right now, you're teaching the kids to be cruel, and I won't allow it." For a moment, the room was silent. Then Claire laughed. Nervously, I thought, "Mom, come on, they're just kids. They don't mean anything by it. They're learning from you," I said, my voice steady. "And it's not just harmless fun. Every time they copy your behavior, it hurts me, and I won't stand for it anymore." The kids looked confused. Max crossed his arms. Emily frowned. I realized they had never seen me this serious before. I could feel a shift in the energy of the room. It was like a dam had broken, and for the first time, they could see the real consequences of their actions. The next week, things started to change subtly. I made a point to engage in activities that Claire's influence couldn't touch. Reading stories with the kids, teaching Emily how to knit, showing Max how to plant vegetables in my garden. I didn't lecture them. I didn't scold them. I just led by example. Slowly, they started to listen. Slowly, they started to mimic positive behavior instead of mockery. But Claire? She wasn't happy. She started trying to undermine me in more creative ways. She made passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my furniture, even the way I arranged flowers in the vase. She invited her friends over and would subtly point out my habits in front of them. I could see it, but I stayed calm. I realized that anger wouldn't win this battle. Strategy and patience would. Then came the twist I never expected. One afternoon, I received a phone call from Max's teacher. She said, "Mrs. Collins, I wanted to tell you that Max has been showing remarkable patience and kindness in class lately, and Emily has been helping other kids instead of teasing them." I felt my eyes tear up. I couldn't believe it. My influence was starting to outweigh Claire's. And the teacher added something that shocked me even more. "Your daughter might not realize it, but the kids talk about you all the time. They admire you more than you know." That night, I sat in my armchair, sipping tea, and thought about the long week. Claire would still try to test me, still laughing behind my back sometimes. But the kids? They were changing, slowly, surely. And it was because I refused to let disrespect stand. I realized something important. I couldn't control Claire, but I could control how I responded. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger. It's patience, dignity, and leading by example. The next day, I invited Claire and the kids over again. This time, I smiled genuinely at them. I didn't lecture. I didn't scold. I just welcomed them into my home and let the warmth of family do its work. Emily hugged me without hesitation. Max handed me a flower from the garden. Claire tried to hide her smile, but I caught it. Something had shifted, and I knew, deep down, that my quiet perseverance had started turning the tide. I still didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in months, I felt hope. Hope that my family could see me not just as a source of entertainment or mockery, but as someone worthy of respect and love. And maybe, just maybe, I could reclaim my place, not as a target for jokes, but as the grandmother, mother, and teacher the days following my small victory with the kids felt almost peaceful, but I knew better than to trust that peace would last. Claire's behavior was changing, but in ways I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't the loud mockery or open ridicule anymore. She had shifted to subtler, sharper tactics. Passive-aggressive comments, little digs during conversation, and what I could only describe as manipulation. I sensed the storm brewing, and I braced myself. One Saturday morning, Claire showed up unannounced. I was in my kitchen, brewing coffee, trying to enjoy a quiet moment. Emily and Max were at the table, drawing quietly. Claire leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, and said, "You know, Mom, it's funny how the kids suddenly admire you. I wonder how long that will last." I felt my stomach tighten, but I didn't let it show. I forced a polite smile and replied, "Children change all the time. I'm just trying to be a positive influence while I can." She scoffed and stepped inside anyway, moving as if she owned the place. The kids tensed, and I knew they could sense the tension too. Claire started going through the house, picking up random items and commenting in that sharp tone she loved so much. "Still keeping that old vase, huh? I thought you'd get rid of it after all these years." I wanted to snap, to tell her she had no right to judge me, but I remembered my own advice: patience, dignity, leading by example. So I stayed quiet, watching and listening. Then, out of nowhere, Max dropped his crayon and said, "Mom, why do you always make Grandma feel bad?" Claire froze. Emily looked at Max with wide eyes, shocked that he had said something so direct. "Max, don't talk like that," Claire said sharply, trying to regain control. I took a deep breath and spoke calmly, but firmly. "Max is right, Claire. It's not fair to make fun of someone, especially someone who loves you." Claire's face turned red. "Oh, come on. I'm just joking. Kids need to learn humor." "No," I said. "They need to learn kindness. And right now, you're teaching them the opposite." For a long moment, Claire said nothing. Then she muttered something under her breath and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. The kids looked at me nervously. I knelt down to their level. "It's okay," I said softly. "You both did the right thing by speaking up. I'm proud of you." That night, I reflected on what had happened. For the first time, Claire had been publicly confronted, and the kids had witnessed it. I felt a sense of quiet triumph. But I also knew that this was only the beginning. Claire wasn't someone who gave up easily, especially not when she thought she was winning. The next few days were tense. Claire tried everything she could think of to regain control. She invited friends over for family game nights, where she subtly mocked my habits in front of everyone. She criticized my cooking during dinner, made sly comments about my furniture, and even whispered to the kids when she thought I wasn't looking. But something remarkable happened. Emily and Max started pushing back, not in anger, but with calm confidence. They would smile politely at Claire, but continue with what we were doing. They would tell her politely that certain jokes weren't funny. One evening, Claire tried to escalate things. She cornered me in the living room while the kids were at bed. "Mom, you think you're so clever, teaching them to disrespect me?" she hissed. "I'm their mother. You don't get to override me in my own home." I looked her in the eye and said quietly, "Claire, I don't want to override you. I want the kids to grow up understanding respect. If you can't help with that, I will." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of doubt in her expression. Then she laughed, a cold, forced laugh. "You're impossible." "Yes, maybe I am," I said, letting a small, calm smile play on my lips. "But sometimes impossible is what it takes to protect what matters." Over the next weeks, I noticed another surprising development. Claire's friends started noticing her behavior too. I heard whispers of comments like, "She's really harsh on her mother," or "Those kids are learning kindness from Grandma, not Mom." It was subtle, but I knew word was spreading. And word spread fast in small towns like ours. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my lawyer, something I'd sent years ago but never followed up on. It was about a small inheritance left to me by my late mother, something Claire had tried to claim as her own over the years. The lawyer informed me that, because of Claire's own negligence and her inability to produce proper documentation, the inheritance legally belonged to me, not her. I couldn't believe it. After all these years, after all the subtle undermining and mockery, justice had come in the most unexpected way. I held the letter in my hands and felt a wave of relief and vindication. I knew I had to handle this carefully. I didn't want to escalate into a full-blown legal battle. I just wanted what was rightfully mine. The next family gathering was tense. Claire tried to act normal, but I could sense her anxiety. I calmly mentioned the inheritance in passing, and her face fell. Emily and Max looked confused, so I explained gently. Sometimes adults make mistakes, but truth has a way of showing itself, and we must honor what is right. Claire didn't argue. She just sat there, her lips pressed tightly together, and I knew the tables had turned. The kids were quiet, but I could see them looking at me with admiration. Something had shifted in the family dynamic, a subtle yet irreversible change. That night, as I sat alone, I realized something profound. All the mockery, all the passive-aggressive behavior, all the tension, it had forged a new sense of strength in me. I wasn't just grandma or mom. I was someone who could protect herself, stand firm, and teach the next generation to value kindness over cruelty. And I knew, deep down, that the coming confrontations with Claire would only solidify the lesson. Justice, I realized, wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about persistence, dignity, and the quiet power of standing up for what's right. The weeks after discovering the inheritance were tense, but I felt stronger than ever. I could see it in Claire's eyes every time she looked at me. Resentment, frustration, and perhaps even fear. She tried to act normal during family dinners, but the energy was different now. Emily and Max had started leaning on me more openly. They would ask for advice, tell me little stories, or just sit by my side while we did puzzles. I could see Claire seething quietly in the corner. One Thursday, it all came to a head. Claire had organized a family lunch at a local diner and invited both sides of the family. I knew she was planning to make me look foolish in front of everyone, probably with jokes or little digs, but I went anyway. I wanted the kids to see that I wasn't afraid, that I could handle whatever she threw at me. As soon as we arrived, Claire started. She whispered loudly, "Mom, don't touch the menu that way. You'll spill something like always." Emily and Max exchanged glances, but they remained calm, sitting quietly beside me. I just smiled, picked up the menu gently, and ignored the jab. Then she began her performance. Claire leaned over to a cousin and said, "I don't know how she manages to live like this. I swear, her house looks like a museum of bad habits." Everyone laughed politely, but I noticed the glances that were not so polite. I had been careful to be friendly, tidy, and composed. I had my dignity intact. As the meal went on, she escalated. She started criticizing my food choices, commenting on my posture, and making snide remarks about my clothes. I felt the familiar sting of humiliation, but I focused on Emily and Max. They were my priority. I whispered to them, "Remember, always stand by what's right, no matter what anyone says." At that moment, something unexpected happened. Claire's younger brother, who had always been a quiet observer, finally spoke up. "Claire, enough," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You've been at this for years, and it's gone too far. You can't keep treating Mom like she's less than you." The diner went quiet. Claire's face turned red, and she opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. The kids looked at me with wide eyes, then at their mother, who was now frozen with disbelief. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. I had been waiting for an update from the lawyer about another matter related to the inheritance. The notification popped up, legal documents confirmed. Inheritance fully secured. I felt a wave of relief, but I also saw Claire's reaction. Her jaw tightened, and she looked like the air had been sucked out of the room. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm but unwavering. "Claire, this isn't about money. It's about respect. It's about teaching the kids that kindness, patience, and integrity matter more than insults or power games." She sputtered something, but no one paid attention. The silence in the diner was heavy, but liberating. Even some of the other family members were nodding subtly, understanding the shift in dynamics. After the meal, back at home, Claire tried one last move. She cornered me in the hallway and hissed, "You think this proves anything? You just made me angrier. I'll I'll make them see I'm right. I looked at her steadily. Claire, you could try all you want, but the kids are learning something more valuable than proving who's right. They're learning respect. And that, over time, will always outweigh bitterness or cruelty. She left the room in a huff, but the kids came running after her. Grandma, Emily said, tugging gently at my sleeve, that was amazing. You didn't even yell at her. I hugged them tightly. I never need to yell to win, sweetheart. The truth and patience do that for us. Over the next few days, I noticed more changes. Claire's attacks became less frequent. The whispers about her behavior had spread quietly through our extended family, and some of her friends had started avoiding her, uncomfortable with her constant negativity. Meanwhile, Emily and Max had grown more confident. They started standing up for themselves in small ways, correcting Claire politely, refusing to laugh at her jokes, and embracing my habits openly. One evening, Claire tried one final ploy. She invited me over under the guise of making amends. I went cautiously optimistic, thinking maybe reconciliation was possible. But as soon as I arrived, she started criticizing me again, this time in front of a neighbor I barely knew. I felt my patience waver, but I held it together. Then the neighbor, a kindly older woman, spoke up. Claire, I think it's time you learned that being mean isn't admirable. Look at how patient your mother is and how your children respond to her. That tells you everything you need to know. Claire froze. She looked around, realizing that her behavior wasn't just embarrassing to me. It was publicly apparent to everyone. She tried to argue, but no one joined her side. I quietly sipped my tea, smiling inside. The power dynamics had shifted entirely. That night, as I reflected, I realized something profound. This wasn't about money or even about proving Claire wrong. This was about teaching the next generation the value of dignity, kindness, and standing up for oneself. I had faced mockery, manipulation, and subtle cruelty, but patience, integrity, and unwavering love for the children had won. And I knew, deep down, that the final confrontation was coming. Claire would either accept her loss with grace or continue down a path where karma had a way of catching up. Either way, the lesson for Emily and Max had been firmly established. The weeks that followed were quieter, but the tension simmered just below the surface. I noticed subtle changes in Claire's behavior. She stopped making passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings and no longer tried to control Emily and Max. Instead, she started avoiding situations where she could be exposed. At first, I thought it was temporary, just a pause before another outburst. But soon, it became clear the tables had truly turned. One Saturday afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Claire. Her voice was low and hesitant. Mom, I want to talk. My heart skipped a beat. I had waited for this moment, not for an apology, but to see what she would do. I agreed to meet her at the park, where we often walked as a family. When I arrived, Claire was sitting on a bench, her posture stiff, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She didn't smile, but there was a vulnerability there I had never seen before. I sat down quietly, giving her space. For a few moments, we just watched the children play across the grass. Emily and Max waved when they saw me, and Claire's eyes followed them with an odd mixture of affection and regret. Finally, she spoke. I've been thinking a lot, she said, voice trembling slightly. About everything. About how I treated you, and how I try to control the kids. I realize now, I was wrong. I wanted to be the one in charge, to be respected, but I forgot what really matters. I listened carefully, choosing my words. Claire, it's not about being in charge. It's about respect, kindness, and setting an example. The children are watching everything we do. That's what will shape them, not arguments or criticism. She nodded slowly. I see that now. I want to change. I want to be better for them. And I'm sorry for how I treated you all these years. Her apology was unexpected, but I could feel its sincerity. Still, I had learned that forgiveness didn't mean allowing past behavior to be ignored. I said gently, I forgive you, Claire, but actions speak louder than words. You need to show them, not just tell them. Over the next few months, I noticed a transformation. Claire began helping with Emily and Max more sincerely. She laughed with them, encouraged their hobbies, and even asked for my advice on small things. Slowly, the tension that had hung over our family lifted. Then came an event that truly confirmed the shift. The extended family gathered for a holiday celebration. I watched as Claire interacted with the children. No sarcasm, no judgment, just genuine engagement. Emily hugged her grandmother without hesitation. Max showed her a drawing he had made. Claire's eyes glistened, and she whispered, "I'm proud of you both." During the dinner, a distant cousin leaned over to me and whispered, "I can't believe the change in her. She used to be so harsh." I smiled quietly. Sometimes people need to be reminded of what really matters. Later that evening, when the house was quiet, I reflected on everything that had happened. The conflict over habits, inheritance, and respect had been intense. There had been moments when I doubted myself, wondered if the struggle was worth it, and questioned whether Claire would ever change. But through patience, integrity, and focusing on what was truly important, the children, I had seen a positive outcome. Interestingly, the inheritance, which had sparked so much tension, now seemed almost trivial. It had been a catalyst, yes, but the real victory was restoring balance, dignity, and mutual respect within the family. Emily and Max had learned a valuable lesson without being caught in the bitterness. One morning, Max came to me with a smile. "Grandma, can we bake cookies together?" he asked. I nodded, and we went into the kitchen. Emily joined, and even Claire offered to help, this time genuinely. As we worked together, I noticed the laughter, the shared stories, and the small acts of kindness. It felt like the family I had always wanted. I realized that life has a way of teaching lessons, sometimes harshly. Claire's attempts to undermine me had backfired, revealing her own insecurities and creating an opportunity for growth. Karma, in its subtle form, had corrected the imbalance. She had to face her actions, and the children had learned the strength of patience, integrity, and standing firm in the face of disrespect. In the end, the story wasn't just about me or Claire. It was about the children, the next generation, and the lessons they would carry forward. Respect, empathy, and love proved stronger than ridicule, control, or petty arguments. And while the road had been long and emotional, the family had emerged more united and aware of what truly matters. As I tucked Emily and Max into bed that night, I whispered, "Remember this, kids. Real strength isn't in making others small. It's in lifting them up, even when they don't expect it." They nodded sleepily, and I felt a deep sense of peace. The moral was clear. Life will throw challenges, relatives may test your patience, and not everyone will behave honorably. But integrity, patience, and love, these are the forces that endure. And sometimes, the universe has a way of ensuring that respect and kindness are never overlooked. As for Claire, she had learned her lesson. And though it had been a rocky journey, in the end, justice and karma had quietly set everything right.